is Suffolk County Legislator. So we have Mr. Cilmi and Mr. Tronolone.
Good job, guys.
There we go. All right, so you each have 3 minutes. I'm going to wave my red flag to tell us about your history and where you come from and what you've done, and then we'll start asking you questions. So just watch my red folder waving
Sure.
around.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joe Tronolone. I'm the candidate for Suffolk County Legislator's 10th District. I'm running on the Democratic, the Working Families and Women's Equality lines. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a lifelong Islip resident, volunteer fireman there for the last 11 years. I'm a math teacher at Brentwood High School. Before I became a math teacher, I worked 9 years in banking and finance, where I helped working families and small business owners here in Suffolk County. And I saw firsthand the challenges that we face as residents and as small business owners in Suffolk County, because we do have a lot of challenges living here financially. The reason I'm running is because for far too long I've been witness, as we all have, to extremely high taxes, a culture of corruption, right? And I think it's just time for a change. Okay, we're facing a huge crisis. A lot of people say the heroin crisis. Yes, heroin is a big part of it, but it's a whole big crisis overall, right? People don't just decide one day to pick up a heroin habit. It starts somewhere. It starts with the legal prescription pills. And unfortunately, over the last 8 years, it's only gotten worse. 2010, a few miles away in Medford, was the Father's Day massacre, right? Where someone went in and murdered in cold blood several people, not for heroin, for these legal prescription pills that ultimately lead to a heroin habit. I'm all about results, and the measures that have been taken, they haven't added up, right? It's only gotten worse, and it's not just here, it's all across the country. I talk to everyone. This affects people regardless of race, socioeconomic status, where you live, how educated you are. And the number one thing a lot of people say is, I know I have a problem, I want help, I can't get help. So we need more treatment. I also want to take out the culture of corruption in Suffolk County politics. We have a broken campaign finance system, where too often elected officials represent the interests and wants of the highest donors instead of the people that they represent. This election in our district has about 18% turnout historically, and so many people don't vote because they say, you know what, whoever gets in, they're bought and paid for, they don't represent my interests. We need real campaign finance reform to make sure people's voices and votes are heard and that they matter. Also, we're facing a terrible, devastating water quality crisis in this county. Whether it's our drinking water, we depend on the aquifer right below us for our drinking water. The top layer, there's 3 layers. The top layer is fully polluted. Second layer is almost there. Once it gets to the third, where do we get our drinking water from? Finally, I'll just close with this. I live in Islip. I grew up on the Great South Bay. Yet again, we've had record levels of brown tide. It kills the marine life. We used to be the clam and oyster capital of the country. It's all gone. One of the ways I justify paying so much to live here is the beautiful beaches, is the Great South Bay. But if we just pollute it all to nothing, what are we doing here? Is it really worth it? So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before I begin my opening statement, just as a means of conveying some information, I found out today that the county is in the process of redoing or expanding the Ronkonkoma train station parking lot. Bruce called and asked if I knew anything about it, and unfortunately I didn't. Frankly, the administration didn't tell me about what they were doing, although we've been advocating for it for some time now. But it's a reconstruction, basically, of the parking lot that's going to take about a month and add about 300 parking spots. So much needed relief to folks who use the Ronkonkoma train station. For those who don't know me, my name is Tom Cilmi. I've been the legislator in the 10th Legislative District for the past 8 years or so. It's a job that never in my life I really imagined doing as a younger person, but now I can't imagine not doing it, quite frankly. It's a job that I enjoy getting up for every single day. When I'm on vacation or out for some reason, I wish I was at work. Somebody asked me today what one of the things I was most proud of in terms of my legislative career. And rather than mention a particular bill that I've passed, and there have been many, it's how connected myself and my office is to the residents in our district. You all know, those of you who know me, and many of you in the room who are from the Ronkonkoma area, know that you can reach out to me in my office at any time, on social media anytime, and I'm at these meetings quite frequently. Whenever anyone has a concern or a question or a problem with something, you can find me personally and get help. Joe's right about some of the issues that face Suffolk County. And I wanted to take a moment to thank Joe for his service, not only as a teacher, but to the Islip Fire Department. We have tremendous problems here in Suffolk County. The opioid epidemic, which begins, by the way, with alcohol abuse, is devastating. Our environmental issues are very problematic, and the impacts on our drinking water and our surface waters are very problematic. And corruption has been a big problem as well. We've tried to address all those issues, both from my office and from the county legislator's point of view. In terms of the opioid epidemic, when I first ran for office, I made a commitment to fighting this problem of, 1 minute left, of underage drinking and drug abuse. Because, as Joe said, it doesn't just start as a heroin addiction. It starts somewhere else. And usually it's with pot or drinking. So I've sponsored bills to address that problem. I've sponsored bills to make the drug house laws in Suffolk County stronger, and those bills have passed, bipartisan. Sponsored bills to increase penalties for those who serve alcohol to minors at parties, what we call the social host law. Again, bipartisan, those bills have passed. As far as our environment goes, I championed something called the Suffolk County Land Bank. It's a not-for-profit corporation that I sit on the board of right now that addresses contaminated brownfield properties in Suffolk County to get rid of some of the contamination. I've been very proud of my environmental record here in Suffolk County. I've been endorsed actually by the New York League of Conservation Voters, supported almost all of our open space acquisitions, and funding to improve our park system as well. And lastly, with respect to the, is that the sound?
Yes, that's the sound.
Lastly, with respect to the fiscal issues, I have been a leader in the legislature at trying to cut unnecessary spending and unnecessary borrowing, and I'll continue to do that if reelected. My website is tomcilmi.com. Go there if you want to help volunteer, or if you need a lawn sign, it's all there. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate your support over the years.
We have 5 questions for you, so that'll be 3 minutes each. And then at the end, if you want to rebut anything that either one of you have said, we'll allow you to do that and give a closing statement. Currently, a VLT casino is operating in Suffolk County. In 2020, state law will allow for a full casino to operate in our county. Are you in favor of this resolution, and how will this be beneficial to our community, or not? Tom, since he opened, I'm going to let you answer.
Sure. So, I was opposed to the VLT casino. I don't think we should be balancing the county's budget on the back, or bailing out OTB, for that matter, on the backs of gamblers. Now, with that said, and a lot of my concern had to do with the potential for traffic and for some bad stuff going on. We haven't heard a lot of those problems. We haven't heard a lot about traffic problems or about bad stuff going on. The casino has proven to be very successful in the short time that it's been opened. It's, in fact, one of the most successful in at least the downstate region. It's generated, in terms of what benefit does it have to our taxpayers, is that it generates a heck of a lot of money. So there's a formula by which the county receives some of the funding specifically for the VLT casino over the past couple of years. And then once OTB gets out of the debt that OTB's in, and they're in quite a bit of debt, then we get a percentage of what's left with OTB, and it could work out actually to be tens of millions of dollars annually, which would obviously be very, very helpful. I continue to be concerned about some of the ill effects of gambling, and so we're going to be watching it very, very closely.
Joe, do you need me to repeat the question? Or
No, I got it.
anytime you need me to do that, please just let me know.
Sure, thank you. I can echo most of what Tom said. You know, I do kind of look down on balancing, you know, OTB's budget or making up for fiscal shortfalls with the county, you know, on the backs of gamblers, which is a vice, right? Some people have a serious gambling problem, and, you know, to kind of take advantage of that to fill our county's coffers is somewhat troubling. Another thing that was troubling about the implementation of the VLT casino is, you know, I think what most, you know, people would say is their voices were not heard. Yet again, it's another issue where, you know, overwhelmingly in the area around there was large opposition. And, you know, time and time again, we see things of this nature. Overall majority of the people are against it. It gets pushed through anyway. You know, we have other issues where people want something to get done, and it never does get done. As far as moving to a full operational casino in a few years, I believe that's something that we must take serious input from the people that live in that area, okay? Because when you take that jump from a VLT to a full functioning casino, you're going to get a lot more people there. So some of the ill effects that we haven't seen yet with the new successful VLT casino could sure as well pop up as soon as it expands to a fully functioning casino. So I think that something that we must take into account, not just in this issue, but every issue, what do the people living in the area actually think?
Thank you, Joe. So Joe, you're going to answer this question first. What do you think is the appropriate balance between red light camera revenue and motorist safety?
Okay, well, motorist safety, first of all, I can tell you as a first responder, I see firsthand many motor vehicle accidents, you know, several times a week in Iceland. And, you know, it has to do a lot with distracted driving. But when we get to the red light camera issue, right, red light camera revenue, that's what we're always talking about, red light camera revenue. I believe it was implemented as a revenue generator. More as a revenue generator than as a safety precaution. Because as studies have shown in Newsay, there are certain intersections where accidents, rear-end collisions have actually gone up since the implementation of red light cameras, right? Certain instances, certain intersections have gone down, but there's been many where there's actually been an increase, right? People are driving, you have a yellow light, you're not sure, do I hit the brake, do I hit the gas? People get crossed up. And I've actually seen it cause some accidents, right? And as far as the revenue concerned, you know, I have a big problem with these fees and many things put in here to kind of ease in the county's coffers, right? You know, we have to look where these cameras being placed. You know, we're seeing a lot increase on traffic violation fees, right? You know, who are paying the majority of these fees? And I feel it's a regressive money generator, right? Who gets pulled over the most? You know, unfortunately, not people that live south of Montauk and Islip or in Bayshore like myself and Tom, but people who live in lower income communities. So now this is, again, it's a regressive revenue generator, which is something I do not agree with. As far as safety, we can implement a system, you know, not specifically to generate revenue, but more in line with safety. And I just do not agree with the red light cameras.
Well, I'm happy to welcome Joe to the Republican Party. Because, quite frankly, it's been the Republican Party that's been opposed to all of the fee increases and opposed to the red light camera program all along. It's the Democrat majority, and by the way, there's a 12-6 Democrat majority in the county legislature as we speak. It's been that majority that has supported many of the fee increases that the county executive has proposed. As far as the red light camera program goes specifically, I've never voted for a red light camera resolution in favor of a red light camera program. The program was approved before I took office in 2010, and since I took office in 2010, I believe there were 2 votes, one to expand the program and another to extend the program. Both votes I voted no. I think the program is a money grab. I think that's evidenced by the type of tickets that people are getting. We have folks come into my office all the time with their tickets and the indication of their video, and we go to the videotape, and 9 times out of 10, that person is making a very, very cautious, slow, right on red, where they nearly come to a complete stop, but they don't quite come to a complete stop, and they're getting a ticket. No police officer in his or her right mind would ever write that ticket. But that's where most of the revenue is coming from, and it's tens of millions of dollars annually. It's a total money grab. I'm totally opposed to it. I don't think it changes people's behavior in the positive. There's been evidence that Joe cited that indicates that at many of these intersections there have been increases, and sometimes 4 and 5 times the number of accidents, rear-end accidents occurring. And I have a method that I've proposed to reduce the number of right-angle accidents at intersections without banging people for a red light ticket. And very simply, that is to take your red light in both directions and leave both directions red a little bit longer. If you're traveling down the road and your light turns yellow and then the light turns red, obviously there's going to be some residual traffic going through that intersection. If the opposing direction turns green right away, what happens? You have a car going through, and potentially that residual traffic is T-boning that car. I say leave that light red for a few seconds longer, allow the residual traffic to get through that intersection, and then the light can turn green and folks can move on. That wouldn't cost our taxpayers, our residents, a dime, and it would make intersections much, much safer.
Great, thank you. First, what is your position on advanced wastewater treatment systems for our waterways? Currently, a county grant program is funding installations. What are your plans when that funding stream is completed? Do you want me to repeat that? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is one issue where we have worked in the county, both with the county executive and with our legislature in a bipartisan way to help protect our environment. We know that nitrogen pollution, among other things, is harming our aquifers and is harming our surface waters, our bay, the sound, and, for that matter, Lake Ronkonkoma. And so we have worked together to implement a variety of different things to try and mitigate those impacts. First of all, we have studied the issue, quite frankly, to death. We've spent a lot of money determining where the nitrogen pollution is coming from, where it's most impactful. We have supported a variety of programs to increase aquaculture in our waterways, that is shellfish life, which cleans the water. And we've invested quite a lot of money in infrastructure when it comes to filtering some of the water that finds its way into our systems. Most recently, the county developed this program where we have now grants and some low-interest loans available to folks who want to use what's called innovative alternative septic systems. The county went out for an RFP, and we solicited proposals from willing vendors that were willing to basically donate their systems for a trial period. And so that was a program that was suggested by the county executive, that was adopted by the legislature, I think unanimously. And we installed, I think, 9 septic systems throughout the county and monitored their effectiveness. We've selected at this point 2 or 3 of them that we found to be most effective, and now we're out there actually allowing people when they, or requiring people when they do certain building to install these systems. And we've developed this program where if you're in certain areas, areas that are most dangerous to our water systems, you can get a grant if you fall within certain income guidelines, and you can get a low-interest loan for whatever the balance is, and you can install one of these systems. It's a great effort that we've come up with in the county, and we'll continue to try and foster these innovative programs to protect our drinking water.
Thank you, Tom.
I would like to say I fully support the program that Tom had just described. You know, we do need an all-hands-on-deck approach to solve this water quality crisis that we have. Again, not only on our surface water, but in our groundwater and our drinking water from our aquifers as well. You know, this is a huge problem. It's not going away. It's been a known problem for decades. And unfortunately, it's just been kicked down the road and kicked down the road until the last, I'd say, 10 years or so. There's been more and more awareness being brought to this issue, and some good things have been put in place. But ultimately, what we're going to have to do is expand the Suffolk County sewer system. I mean, we've been discussing ways, and there's been various proposals kicked around for the last 20 to 30 years, but it hasn't gotten done. Eventually, we're going to have to sit down, we're going to have to get in a room and figure out a way to get this done, because there's almost no other way that we can ultimately solve this problem if we don't expand our water treatment facilities. We hear both parties, almost every level of government, saying one thing that we agree on is our infrastructure in this country and in this county is crumbling. It's outdated, it's ancient, it's overloaded. One of the best infrastructure problems that we could solve is our water treatment problem by expanding Suffolk County sewers. If we can, appeal to the federal government and state government and just really show them that this water quality crisis that we're facing, our local government, our state government, and our federal government really do need to get together and figure out how we can have an all-hands-on-deck approach to solve this water quality crisis. Like I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Islip. I still live in Islip, the Great South Bay. It's one of the reasons why I haven't left, like so many people in my generation, struggling to make it in this, costly area. One of the reasons I haven't left is because I love the Great South Bay. And yet again this year, we had a record level of brown tide. It decimates the marine life. We are starting, Governor Cuomo has provided state aid as well to reseed the bay and some of our waterways with the shellfish. But, ultimately, if we don't stop another level of brown tide next year, they're not going to make it because it decimates the younger population. So, while I do support the current pilot program and the grants being provided in low-interest loans, ultimately that's just going to be a drop in the bucket. Eventually we're going to have to figure out how can we expand Suffolk County sewer system.
Thank you. So we're going to start with you on this one. The county executive has proposed plans for connectivity across Suffolk County. With this comes development such as the hub right here in Ronkonkoma. What is your opinion of this type of development, often called TOD?
Well, we are going to have to really think about our development and how we develop on Long Island. And we need to grow, but we need to grow in a smart way. But we need to grow in a way that ultimately doesn't change what Long Island is. This is a beautiful suburban place, you know, it's the first suburbs in the country, right? When we look at Nassau and eventually Suffolk, post-World War II, you know, where what Middle America and what suburban America was modeled on. So we need to be very careful when we implement some of these development problems that we ultimately don't change who we are and where we live.
Right.
Having said that, you know, there are some great things that can come with the Long Island Hub, with the Ronkonkoma Hub project. You know, it can bring increased businesses into the area because, like I mentioned earlier, people my age, I'm in my early 30s, are finding it very hard to get a good paying job and actually afford to buy a home and pay our taxes here in Suffolk. So projects like this can provide those jobs that we need, okay? But again, like I said before, what we do need to take into account are your opinions. You people live here in Ronkonkoma. It's going to be going up right around the block from your homes. What do you think? You know, we need to speak with you and find out, how, you know, if you want this to go in, what are your thoughts? How would you like it done? You know, too often with these jobs, it's just, honestly, it's shoved right onto your doorstep without too much input. So one thing I would like to see is full hearings with the public, with the voters. You know, what do you guys think? What do you want? And ultimately, I think projects like this will be a boon to our economy here on Long Island.
Thank you.
So I think some transit-oriented development is good. I think very simply, we're doing too much of it too quickly. We're building too many apartments too quickly before we see what young folks really, and those of us who aren't so young anymore, want to do. 10 years ago or so, you know, nobody was looking to live in an apartment complex. Today, of course, many young people are looking to live in walkable communities such as Boston, such as we have now beginning in Queens and parts of Queens and Brooklyn and Washington, D.C. But what happens if in 10 or 15 years from now, young people and the rest of us decide that that's really not what we want? What do we do with all of these buildings and apartments? Who is going to live there? And as Joe rightly said, I don't want to change our suburban way of life here in Suffolk County. So I think some of it is good, but I think we have to be very, very careful not to do too much of it too quickly. The Ronkonkoma Hub, the ship there has pretty much already sailed. I mean, they're talking about groundbreaking very, very soon. I think, you know, at the very start of those discussions, I worked with the board of this organization to help give them a seat at the table, which they, quite frankly, didn't have initially. And I think the board has done a good job of providing a forum for information where the developer has come to this group and talked about what they're planning to do at the hub, and some of the fears that we had and I still continue to have with respect to traffic have really not been addressed, but we're going to have to keep their feet to the fire and see what happens going forward. I think, though, the organization that's doing that project has at least articulated a commitment to, at this point, not initially, but at this point, to working with the Islip side of Ronkonkoma to ensure that it's not negatively impactful to our community.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, this is our last question for you guys, and then we'll let you sum up and rebut anything that either one of you said. Currently, the county has increased fees for many things to decrease the deficit. Do you support these fees? If not, what is a way to increase revenue and decrease the deficit without fees?
So, The county's operating budget, which is roughly $3 billion, the revenue from that budget comes chiefly from two sources. One is sales tax. We collect about a little more than $1 billion a year in sales tax. And the other is property taxes. We collect about 550 or so $1 million a year from the police district, which is the 5 western towns in Suffolk County, which is supposed to be for public safety. And we collect, of course, a very, very small amount in what's called general fund property taxes, which is supposed to support the rest of the county's operations. As Joe and I both articulated in our opening statements, we are opposed to all of these nickel and dime fees that the county executive and the majority of the legislature has authorized over the past few years. The mortgage fee, the vehicle registration fee, the red light camera program, the alarm management program, hint, hint, public safety tax. All of these things diminish the quality of life of residents here in Suffolk County. If you don't have a quality life, nobody wants to live here. And if nobody wants to live here, businesses can't find employees to put in jobs. So businesses can't succeed here. For every 1% increase in sales tax to the county, that's not increase in sales tax percentage, but increase in sales tax revenue to the county. That's $11 million of extra revenue. That's a lot of employees that could be cleaning up the streets, paving the roads, providing public safety, maybe counseling for alcohol and substance abuse. So if we create an environment where businesses can thrive here in Suffolk County and where residents appreciate being here, then we can improve our sales tax revenue and we don't have to nickel and dime everybody with all of these fees. In addition to that, if we stop making stupid decisions in our county government, recently the administration, and I'm going to try to get to the bottom of exactly who, but recently the administration deliberately, purposefully breached a contract with a company that puts solar carports over county parking lots, which is going to cost us, taxpayers, roughly $15 million. We lost a court judgment for $10 million plus. We're now going to have to pay interest and legal expenses, additional millions of dollars, and we have lost revenue from this company that was supposed to pay us for these carports. $15 million. That's a heck of a lot of paved roads. That's a heck of a lot of drug and alcohol counseling, and a heck of a lot of park cleanups and all kinds of other things. So if we stop making stupid decisions, if we stop hiring people at $150 grand a year in the Dennison building and start putting frontline workers on the streets, we can improve the quality of life and increase sales tax revenue, and that will prevent us from having to enact all of these different fees.
Again, I'd like to echo what Tom said earlier about my views with a lot of these administrative fees. You know, it's not a popular viewpoint in many Democratic legislators in Suffolk, but you know that just shows I'm not tied down, you know, 100% to what people in the Democratic Party believe and what they fight for. Right? I believe government should work at every level, but especially at the local level, it should work at common sense. Right? Too often, you know, things are too divided over party lines. So this is one area where Tom and myself are definitely fully in agreement. You know, many of these administrative fees, like I said earlier, are regressive. They're being imposed on the backs of low-income people, people who can least afford to pay them. Increasing our sales tax revenue is, you know, the major way that we can make up this revenue shortfall. So we do have to make Long Island friendly to businesses. But we also need to be very careful when we make these deals with businesses to entice them to come. We need to hold them accountable. If they're supposed to come here and create X amount of jobs and they only create half, you know, now we gave them this sweetheart deal. They're not paying as much in property taxes and things like that. And we've seen that, you know, throughout the state. You know, companies come in, they promise this much revenue, this many jobs, and they underperform. We must be able to hold these companies accountable if that is the case. But, you know, like Tom said, we do need to create a business-friendly environment here in Suffolk County. Some of the development is a way to do that, but again, we can't do it in a way that's fundamentally going to change Long Island or Suffolk County. Other ways we can raise revenue, you know, we need to look at everything. But as far as cutting costs, I do fully support the sharing initiative that's been put in place. It's already been shown to save the county and towns across Suffolk millions of dollars. I think we need to look through everything with a fine-tooth comb, find wasteful spending, you know, reproduced efforts, and eliminate them. Again, I worked for 9 years in banking and finance, and you know, I've seen small businesses, and you know, they do face a lot of challenges, but we really need to get together and create an environment that works for them, not only these big box stores that we see take over Long Island. We need to really cater to the small businesses that are the lifeblood of our community.
Close first and just give your closing statements, and that's it. Thank you.
So again, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'm Joe Tronolone. It's really nice to be here in front of you all. You know, I'll close with this. You know, again, I'm 32 years old. I've lived in Suffolk County my whole life. I've lived in Islip my whole life. I love this place. I don't want to have to leave. So we do need to enact many of the changes that myself and Tom have spoken about tonight in order to foster an environment that, you know, where people my age and people coming to retirement can actually afford to still live here. Because if we don't, you know, if we don't fix this quick, you know, our population's going down, 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 and that's a decreasing tax base, which is only going to make our problems worse. So I promise, you know, if elected, I will be there every day. You know, in Islip, people know me from the firehouse. I'm always around. I'm always there to help a neighbor. I'm always there to help a friend. And I'll do the same if elected your legislator. So I'm asking for your vote, please, November 7th. If you'd like more information, you can just find me on Facebook, Joe Tronolone for Suffolk. And again, I'm really grateful to be here tonight. Thank you.
I want to thank Joe for being here tonight and being engaged in the electoral process. I want to thank the board of the Ronkonkoma Civic Association for the forum that they provide to us every year and for the great work that they do in our community, and certainly all of you for being here, particularly those of you who are young people in school. As Joe said earlier, perhaps 18% of registered voters will come out and vote this year. If we looked at the percentage of voters under the age of 25 who come out to vote, I bet it's not even 3 or 4%. So the fact that you're here tonight engaged in this process is really, really important, and please encourage all of your friends who are old enough to come out and vote. It has been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to serve the residents of this district for the last 8 years or so. I have worked very hard. I have fought very hard. I will continue to do so. I'm hoping for your support, and together we can work together to make Suffolk a better place for tomorrow and well into the future. Again, you can find me at tomcilmi.com. My palm cards are up on the shelf there. Feel free to take one on your way out, and enjoy the rest of the night. Thank you all for being here.